The year is 1901. Deep in the Missouri Ozarks, where the Appalachian wilderness swallows civilization whole, two brothers are living like animals. No law, no mercy, no witnesses. Their cabin sits miles from the nearest town, isolated, rotting, wrapped in silence so thick it feels like a warning. But that silence? It's hiding something. Something the world won't discover for months. Something so disturbing that when it finally comes to light, entire communities will be left paralyzed with horror. Because these brothers didn't just abandon society. They turned their isolation into a hunting ground. And the women who crossed their path? They never left. This is the story of the Goddard brothers and the terror they unleashed in the forgotten hills of Missouri. The Missouri Ozarks in 1901 weren't just remote, they were lawless. Thick forests, jagged cliffs, caves that went so deep, locals believed they led straight to hell. Out here, you could disappear and no one would ask questions. Out here, you could become something else entirely. And that's exactly what Lonnie and Bert Goddard did. The brothers had grown up in a broken home, violence, neglect. A father who taught them that women were property and weakness was death. By their 20s, they'd rejected civilization completely. They built a shack 15 miles from the nearest settlement. No roads led to it. No neighbors could see it. Just two men. Alone. Watching. But they weren't hermits seeking peace. They were predators preparing a trap. Because here's what the townsfolk didn't know yet, and what makes your blood run cold when you learn it. The Goddard brothers had been planning this. For months, they'd been riding into nearby towns dressed cleanly, speaking politely, playing the part of rough but harmless country boys. They'd strike up conversations with young women, offer work, promise safety. "We've got a cabin," they'd say. "Good pay for helping with chores. Just a few weeks." And some women, desperate, trusting, hoping for a better life, said yes. That was their first mistake. And their last. Her name was Sarah Hickman, 22 years old. A seamstress from a neighboring county. In the spring of 1901, she told her sister she'd been offered work at a homestead. Good money, respectable people. She packed a single bag and left on a Tuesday morning. She was never seen alive again. But Sarah wasn't the first. Over the course of 18 months, at least 4 women went missing in the Missouri Ozarks. All young, all working class. All last seen with 2 men matching the Goddard brothers' description. Local authorities barely investigated. This was the frontier. People vanished all the time, ran off with lovers, got lost in the wilderness, started new lives elsewhere. No one suspected murder. No one suspected what was really happening in that cabin. Because the Goddard brothers weren't just killers. They were collectors. Inside their shack, they created a nightmare. The women they lured weren't just murdered, they were kept. Imprisoned, tortured, used. The brothers had descended so far into depravity that they'd stopped seeing these women as human beings at all. And the isolation? It made them fearless. Who would hear the screams out here? Who would come looking? The answer, for a long time, was no one. But monsters always make mistakes. October 1901. A traveling merchant named Samuel Pruitt was riding through the Ozarks when his horse threw a shoe. He spotted smoke rising from the trees, a cabin, maybe someone who could help. He approached cautiously. The place looked abandoned. The windows were boarded. The smell was wrong. And then he saw her. A young woman, thin, bruised, wild-eyed, stumbling out of the tree line, barely able to stand. Her name was Clara Whitmore, and she'd just escaped hell. Clara had been held by the Goddard brothers for 11 days. She told Pruitt everything, the false promises, the ride into the wilderness, the moment the brothers' faces changed when they realized she was completely alone. She described the cabin's interior, chains bolted to the walls, bloodstains on the floor, items belonging to other women, and she told him something that made his stomach turn. There are others, dead, buried behind the cabin. Samuel Pruitt rode straight to the nearest marshal. Within 24 hours, a posse of 15 men descended on the Goddard property. What they found would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The cabin was worse than Clara described. Inside, the air was thick with rot. Flies swarmed the corners. The walls were scratched and dented, evidence of desperate struggles. Chains hung from support beams. A collection of women's belongings, shoes, dresses, lockets were piled in a crude wooden box. But the real nightmare was outside. Behind the cabin, in a clearing barely visible from the trail, the posse found freshly turned earth. They started digging. The first body was 3 feet down, then another, and another. By sunset, they'd unearthed the remains of 5 women, including Sarah Hickman. Some had been there for over a year. Others were recent. All had died violently. The Goddard brothers weren't there when the posse arrived. They'd fled into the wilderness the moment Clara escaped, vanishing into the same forests that had hidden their crimes for so long. A manhunt began immediately. Bloodhounds, trackers, volunteers from every nearby settlement. For 3 weeks, the brothers evaded capture, moving like ghosts through terrain they knew better than anyone. But the net was closing. November 14, 1901. A farmer 20 miles south reported seeing 2 men stealing food from his storehouse. When deputies arrived, they found Lonnie and Bert Goddard hiding in a barn, malnourished and desperate. They didn't resist. They didn't confess either. Even when confronted with the evidence, the bodies, Clara's testimony, the belongings, they remained silent, staring with empty eyes that seemed incapable of remorse. The trial was swift. The community wanted blood. Newspapers across Missouri ran lurid headlines: Ozark Monsters, The Cabin of Horrors, Brothers of Depravity. On January 9, 1902, both men were found guilty of multiple counts of murder, kidnapping, and assault. They were sentenced to hang, but here's what keeps people awake at night. During their final week alive, Bert Goddard made a chilling statement to a prison chaplain. He said there were more women they'd lured, more bodies that were never found. He smiled when he said it, and then he refused to say another word. On January 23, 1902, Lonnie and Bert Goddard were executed by hanging in front of a crowd of over 300 people. Clara Whitmore, the sole survivor, watched from a distance. She never spoke publicly about her ordeal again. The Goddard brothers' case stands as one of the most disturbing examples of frontier-era violence, a stark reminder of how isolation and lawlessness can breed unimaginable evil. But beyond the horror, this story teaches us critical lessons about vulnerability, systemic failure, and survival. What we can learn. 1. The Predator's Playbook. The Goddards used classic manipulation tactics, offering help, exploiting economic desperation, isolating their victims. Modern trafficking and predatory crime still follow these patterns. Awareness is the first defense. 2. The danger of isolation. Geographic and social isolation made these crimes possible. Today, digital isolation can be just as dangerous. Communities online and offline must stay connected and vigilant. 3. The failure of authority. Law enforcement in 1901 dismissed missing women as runaways. Even now, marginalized victims often face skepticism. Advocacy and systemic reform remain essential. 4. The power of one voice. Clara Whitmore's courage to escape and testify saved future lives. Speaking up, even when terrified, can break cycles of violence. 5. Evil is human. The Goddards weren't supernatural monsters. They were men who chose cruelty. Understanding that darkness exists within human capacity helps us recognize warning signs and protect the vulnerable. The Missouri Ozarks are peaceful now. The cabin is long gone, burned by locals who wanted to erase the nightmare. But the graves remain, and so does the question we can never fully answer. How many more secrets are buried in those hills? Some stories don't end. They just wait.